To help us better understand what's at stake is Rafael Salies. He's an independent consultant for Latin American business intelligence and risk advisory. Sir, I want to ask you about this trip. Bolsonaro chose Washington to be his first trip abroad for bilateral meetings. Bolsonaro made no secrets that he's an admirer of President Trump. This trip is just significant in more ways than one, right?
There's an electoral component to it where he is definitely playing towards his base internally, but there's also a inner cabinet component to it where he's favoring politics and the policies favored by his sons and a more ideological part of his cabinet when he's going straight up to Trump. However, at the same time, he is going towards certain policies that the rest of his cabinet could see benefit the country, such as trade rights, the Alcantara base, renting to the United States, and a few other issues.
Rafael, what do you think will be the tangible outcomes of this visit, other than the two people who are admiring each other, bonding with each other?
There's no real tangible outcomes that are certain. Even treaties that are more likely to be signed, such as the Alcantara space base, still has to go through Brazilian Congress. And Bolsonaro himself has voted against a very similar treaty in the early 2000s. So it's really hard to say what the Brazilian government will get from this, although the Brazilian government is going to these meetings willing to open up a few issues, for example, wheat importation or visa restrictions for American citizens. So it depends on what way you look from it, right? Bolsonaro certainly wants to establish a good relationship from Trump, but beyond that, it's hard to say that Brazil is actually going to get anything out of these meetings that we can put our hands on.
On the political and military side, Bolsonaro said there could be a signing of an agreement under which the U.S. will gain access to a satellite launch center in Brazil near the equator. How do you think U.S.-Brazil relations will be strengthened in the military and political front?
Well, being declared a major non-NATO ally for Brazil would certainly be a big thing, and it's something that the Brazilian armed forces will definitely enjoy due to the access to technology and military equipment. The space base in Alcantara and renting it to the United States is a different issue, as there are sovereignty issues that need to be discussed that will have trouble going through Congress, that even the Brazilian military will have trouble with in certain aspects. But in the end, it will all serve as a conduit to a stronger, closer connection with the United States by the Brazilian government.
We know that China is Brazil's largest trading partner, and if I'm correct, the U.S. is Brazil's second largest. Do you think closer ties between Brazil and Washington will necessarily mean less close ties between Brazil and China?
No, not necessarily. What could mean less close ties between Brazil and China is the Bolsonaro government's public diplomacy, right? The more ideological wing of the Bolsonaro government is clearly anti-China, which is a problem depending on how the Chinese government deals with it. But we can't forget also that in a few weeks, the Chinese government and the U.S. government are going to be discussing their trade relation, and whatever comes out of this could be highly detrimental to Brazilian interests, as the commercial relationship between Brazil and China are a market matter, right? So when the trade war between China and the U.S. started, Brazil reaped, at least in agribusiness, about $8 billion of benefits from this. These $8 billion can go away, which will start pushing China apart, but at the same time, Bolsonaro is going to get a large pushback from his agribusiness voting base, who needs a strong Chinese-Brazilian relationship.
Rafael Salies, consultant for Latin American business intelligence and risk advisory, thank you so much.